The sound of the gunshot still echoes in my head. 1 second, I was looking into my wife's eyes, the woman I had promised my life to, the mother of my children, my partner in everything. The next, a flash of fire erupted from her hands, and the bullet slammed into my chest. I remember falling backward, the world slowing down, air leaving my lungs as I hit the cold ground. I should have died that night. She wanted me to. In fact, she smiled as she stood over me, whispering something I'll never forget. Finally, it's done. But it wasn't, because what she didn't know was that beneath my shirt, I was wearing my tactical vest, a habit I'd picked up from my years in the military, something I never told her about. That vest didn't just save my life. It gave me the chance to learn the truth behind her betrayal. Lying there, I fought the urge to move. Instead, I played dead. I listened as she made a call. Her voice, once so warm and familiar, turned cold and calculating. It's done. He won't be bothering us anymore. Get everything ready. Tonight, we take the final step. That's when I realized this wasn't just a crime of passion. It wasn't just a wife leaving her husband. This was a plan. A long, carefully crafted plan. They thought I was dead, but I wasn't. And because I lived, I uncovered everything. The affair, the money, the conspiracy, the danger of my daughter, and the fate they had sealed for themselves the moment she pulled that trigger. By the time I'm done telling you this story, you'll understand one thing. Betrayal from a stranger cuts deep, but betrayal from the person you love most can turn you into something else entirely. Not just a survivor, but the nightmare they never saw coming. Before the night she pulled the trigger, before the betrayal that nearly ended me, my life looked perfect from the outside. I was 36, a decorated Army veteran turned private security consultant. My company, Sentinel Risk Solutions, was doing well enough that I didn't have to worry about bills anymore. We lived in a 3-story suburban home just outside Austin, Texas. I drove a black Ford truck. My wife, Claire, had her white Mercedes. And our 10-year-old son, Daniel, had the childhood I never thought I'd be able to give him: private school, soccer practice, backyard birthday parties with friends. People looked at us and saw the American dream. But dreams have cracks. And if you don't pay attention, those cracks grow until everything collapses. At first, I thought Claire's late nights were normal. She was a corporate paralegal. Big cases, long hours. She said she was chasing a promotion, working overtime to help with Daniel's future. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, the woman I'd share a home and a bed with for 12 years. But small things didn't add up. Her perfume would linger hours after she claimed she was at the office. Expensive gifts appeared in her jewelry box that I knew I hadn't bought. And worst of all, she started looking at me differently. Not with anger, not with sadness, but with something colder: indifference. I chalked it up to stress, to routine, to the natural wear and tear of marriage. My military training had taught me to scan for threats outside, foreign enemies, armed men, suspicious vehicles. But it had never prepared me for possibility that the real threat might be standing in my own kitchen, smiling while she poured Daniel a glass of orange juice. The first time I heard the name Ethan Cross, it meant nothing to me. He was just another businessman in the city, some venture capitalist with money to burn. We met at charity gala, where he shook my hand and praised my company for providing executive protection to high-profile clients. He was tall, confident, with that kind of arrogance only wealth can buy. Claire introduced us, and I noticed the way her eyes lingered on him, but I dismissed it. She was my wife. Surely I was imagining things. But then Ethan kept appearing. At events. At her office. Once, I even saw his car idling near our street, but when I mentioned it, Claire brushed it off with a laugh. "You're paranoid, Alex. Not everything is conspiracy." Maybe not everything. But she was right about one thing. I was paranoid. And paranoia has saved my life more times than I can count. So I started watching. Not in an obvious way. In my line of work, surveillance is second nature. Phone bills, GPS trackers, subtle changes in body language. It didn't take long to confirm what I feared. She was lying. What I didn't know yet was how deep the lies went. At home, things continued like nothing was wrong. We had family dinners. We took Daniel to the movies. Claire even kissed me goodnight, the same way she always had. But I could feel the performance in it. I could feel the distance. And then, 2 weeks before the shooting, something strange happened. Claire insisted I update my life insurance policy. Just in case, she said, with your job being so dangerous and all. That was the first time a chill truly ran down my spine. I've faced insurgents in Afghanistan, ambushes in dark alleyways, men with bombs strapped to their chests. But nothing made me as uneasy as my own wife smiling as she pushed a pen across the table, asking me to sign papers worth $2 million if I suddenly died. I didn't sign. Not yet. And that hesitation, that tiny spark of instinct, might have been the only thing that saved me. Looking back now, I see how carefully she set the trap. The business trips, that didn't exist. The arguments she picked just to keep me distracted. The way she started bringing Ethan's name into casual conversation, as if planting seeds. And the sudden surge of expenses on our joint account that she couldn't explain. It wasn't just an affair. It was preparation. Claire wasn't planning to leave me. She was planning to erase me. But at the time, I was still clinging to the illusion. I told myself we'd work it out, that I'd been through worse and survived, and we'd survive this too. I had no idea that the person sleeping next to me at night was already rehearsing my death in her mind. Most people think betrayal is simple. A partner cheats, lies, maybe empties a bank account. Painful, yes, but survivable. What I was about to uncover went beyond anything I could have imagined. Claire hadn't just broken her vows. She had conspired to end my life. And she hadn't done it alone. It started with little discoveries. Her phone buzzing late at night. Numbers saved without names. Accounts hidden under aliases. With my security background, I had the tools to dig deeper. What I found still makes me sick. 8 months before the night she pulled the trigger, Claire had opened a joint offshore account with Ethan Cross. Millions were funneled through shell companies, disguised as investments. But the funds weren't just for luxury vacations or jewelry. They were for contracts. Contracts that spelled out payments tied to one specific outcome. My death. The plan was chillingly methodical. Step 1. Push me to increase my life insurance. Step 2. Arrange the accident. Step 3. Collect the payout and disappear with Ethan. It was perfect, except for one flaw. Me. I'd survived war zones because I always trusted my instincts. And those instincts told me something far darker was at play. The more I uncovered, the more I realized Ethan wasn't just some rich businessman chasing my wife. He had connections. Deep ones. Names I recognized from old Army intelligence reports. Men who'd been investigated for arms trafficking, fraud, even organized crime. Ethan wasn't just after Claire. He was using her. She was his key into me, because through me, he could access something worth far more than my life insurance. He could access my company's confidential files, client rosters, wealthy families, executive travel plans, and the security systems I personally designed to keep them safe. That was their real goal. If I had died that night, accidentally gunned down in a botched robbery or mysterious car crash, Claire would have inherited everything. My business, my data, my clients. She and Ethan could have sold that intel to the highest bidder, and hundreds of families would have been left exposed to kidnapping, blackmail, worse. My death wasn't just a betrayal. It was a transaction. And the worst part? Claire didn't hesitate. She had rehearsed it, planned it, smiled through it. She played the loving wife during the day, and at night, she whispered into Ethan's ear, calculating what my life was worth. I thought about Daniel, our son. How many bedtime stories had she read to him with one hand, while texting Ethan with the other? How many times had she kissed me goodnight after discussing how to kill me? That's when it hit me. I wasn't just fighting for my life anymore. I was fighting for my son's future. Because if they could betray me, they could just as easily betray him. The deeper I looked, the darker it got. I found messages between them where they laughed about me, called me the soldier boy, said I was too blind to see what was happening in front of me. They even joked about the way I always wore my old Army vest when working late in the garage. Irony. That paranoia would soon be the reason their plan failed. But betrayal has a way of distorting reality. And when you're the victim, you make mistakes. I nearly made one myself. My first impulse was confrontation, to storm into the living room, throw the evidence on the table, scream at Claire, demand the truth. But I didn't. My training stopped me, because confrontation would have given her the upper hand. It would have forced me into an emotional reaction, exactly what she wanted. That's the trap so many people fall into when they're betrayed. They confront too soon. They reveal they know the truth before they're ready. And once a betrayer knows you're aware, you've lost the element of surprise. I kept quiet. I kept pretending. I tucked Daniel into bed, kissed Claire on the cheek, and told her I loved her while my mind burned with rage. Every word she spoke, every smile she faked, every phone call she whispered became evidence. And the more evidence I collected, the more horrifying the picture became. Claire hadn't been corrupted overnight. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was months, years maybe, of manipulation, of greed, of choosing herself over the family she was supposed to protect. And Ethan, he wasn't just a lover. He was a predator. He had identified her weaknesses, vanity, greed, resentment, and weaponized them against me. Together, they became something toxic, something lethal. But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't break you instantly. It builds pressure like a storm gathering strength. The lies, the secrets, the little manipulations, they pile up until a moment comes when everything explodes. For me, that moment was a gunshot. But for them, it was only the beginning. Because what they didn't understand was that betrayal doesn't create weakness. It creates clarity. And once I had clarity, I stopped being their victim. I became their reckoning. It happened on a Thursday night. Claire had made lasagna, my favorite, though it tasted strange to me, bitter at the edges. I ate slowly, forcing small talk, watching her eyes. They were too calm, too rehearsed. Daniel had gone upstairs early, tired from soccer practice. It was just the two of us at the table, wine glasses half full, silence stretching too long. Then she smiled. A smile that wasn't hers anymore. "Why don't you go check the shed after dinner? Alex? I think I heard something scratching out there." It was such a small thing. Harmless. But my instincts flared. I'd spent too many years learning the difference between a casual suggestion and a setup. Something in her tone told me this wasn't about a shed. Still, I went. I pulled on my old tactical vest before stepping outside, a habit she'd mocked for years. "You're not in the army anymore," she'd say. "You're safe here." But paranoia had kept me alive before, and tonight it would again. The shed was dark, empty, nothing unusual. I turned back toward the house, my boots crunching the gravel. That's when I saw her silhouette in the doorway. For a split second, I thought maybe she was coming to join me. Maybe I'd been wrong. Then the muzzle flashed. The impact slammed into my chest like a sledgehammer, knocking the air from my lungs. Pain radiated through my ribs as I staggered backward, collapsing to the ground. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Claire stepped closer, the gun steady in her hands. Her face wasn't twisted with guilt or fear. It was calm, cold. She leaned down, her voice almost tender. "Finally," she whispered, "it's done." My vision blurred, but training kicked in. Don't move. Don't breathe too deep. Play dead. I slowed my pulse, let my body go limp. And as I lay there, I heard her footsteps crunch across the gravel. Then another set joined hers. Ethan. He crouched beside her, his cologne cutting through the night air. He didn't even bother lowering his voice. "Are you sure?" "I hit him in the chest," Claire replied. "Point blank. He's not getting up." They both laughed. That sound will haunt me forever. My wife and her lover laughing over my body, as if I were already a corpse. "Good," Ethan said. "Get the boy ready. We leave at dawn." The boy, Daniel. The words froze my blood. It wasn't just about money. Not anymore. They were planning to take my son, either as leverage or worse, as a pawn in whatever twisted scheme Ethan was running. I stayed still, heart hammering, as they walked back inside. Only when the door shut did I dare to move. My vest had a deep dent where the bullet had struck, the Kevlar fibers shredded but intact. My ribs ached like fire, but I was alive. Alive and awake. The shot had shattered the illusion. There was no saving my marriage, no talking it through, no fixing what was broken. Claire had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. But survival brought something sharper than pain. Clarity. Lying on the cold ground, I realized the truth. The woman I married was gone. Maybe she'd been gone for years. In her place stood someone else. Someone who wanted me erased. Someone who had chosen greed over love, betrayal over loyalty. And Ethan? He wasn't just a thief of my wife. He was a thief of lives. He saw Daniel not as a child, but as an asset. Just like me. Just like Claire. Just like everyone he touched. That's when the decision crystallized. I wouldn't run. I wouldn't beg the police to protect me. Not when Ethan had connections deep enough to bury cases before they even started. I would do what I'd been trained to do. I would fight back. Not with blind rage. Not with sloppy confrontation. With precision. With patience. With the kind of cold, disciplined fury that wins wars. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a declaration. Claire and Ethan had declared war on me, and I intended to win. That night, I crawled back into my office, body aching, ribs bruised, vest cracked but intact. I locked the door, pulled up every file I had, every surveillance feed, every shred of data I collected. I replayed their words in my mind. Get the boy ready. We leave at dawn. That gave me less than 12 hours. 12 hours to save my son. 12 hours to flip their plan back on them. 12 hours to become the hunter they never expected. I strapped the vest tighter, ignoring the pain. I checked my pistol, chamber around, and looked at my reflection in the dark window. The man staring back wasn't a betrayed husband anymore. He wasn't even a father fighting for his son. He was something else. Something they had created the moment they pulled that trigger. Their reckoning. The plan wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was a surgical unraveling. Expose their crimes, save my son, and make sure they could never hurt anyone else. That meant I couldn't act like an angry man with a gun. I had to act like a strategist, patient, methodical, and utterly ruthless in pursuit of the truth. I broke the approach into 4 core pillars: survive, observe, assemble, and expose, and then built simple, step-by-step tactics under each. Each pillar fed the next. Each step reduced risk and increased leverage. That structure kept me from losing myself in rage. It gave me a map. 1. Survive, stabilize, conceal, preserve evidence. I couldn't lead a crusade if I was dead or in jail. First priority was my body and my cover. The vest had done its job, but bullets and lies leave marks. I treated my wounds, kept the shadows of routine, and staged the scene so Claire and Ethan believed I was out of the picture. That meant silence. No public outbursts. No emergency phone calls that could tip them off. Most of all, I preserved the one thing they couldn't take back: evidence. I kept every incriminating message, every bank transfer copy, every image of Claire and Ethan together, and a recording of them laughing about getting rid of me. Those pieces were my currency, more valuable than any weapon. 2. Observe. Surveillance without being seen. With the immediate danger reduced, I shifted into watch mode. Not the clumsy, obvious kind you see in movies. The quiet, patient kind that builds full context. I used low-tech and high-sense. Tracking patterns, watching times, noting faces, and triangulating relationships. I rewatched old footage, cross-referenced bank timestamps with travel logs, and mapped the social web around Ethan. The goal was to move from suspicion to certainty, to create an airtight timeline that showed motive, action, and benefit. The cleaner my timeline, the harder it would be for them to wiggle free when the world demanded answers. 3. Assemble, allies, leverage legal pressure. You don't topple a con man or a corrupt network alone. You do it with authorities, witnesses, and leverage. I contacted only the people I could absolutely trust. An old army buddy who owed me everything, one lawyer I once protected at a charity event, and a federal agent who had once told me, off the record, that sometimes the system needed a nudge. I fed them portions of the evidence. Enough to get their attention, not enough for them to act without me. That's crucial. Give just enough to mobilize, but not enough to burn the source. Parallel to that, I began using the evidence as leverage with Ethan's partners and Claire's financial conduits. A few phone calls, a few carefully timed leaks, and nervous money men started asking questions of their own, the kind that made Ethan's carefully constructed life wobble. For expose, force choices, and let the law finish what I start. Revealing everything had to be a controlled demolition. Public outrage would help, but only if the case was legally unsinkable. So I prepared 3 simultaneous pressure points. Criminal complaints filed with corroborating evidence, financial audits showing the money trail, and targeted media exposure aimed at the people who funded Ethan's lifestyle. The purpose was simple: trap them between legal consequences, social ruin, and financial collapse. When the walls close in from multiple directions, even the most brazen conspirators make mistakes. They call the wrong person. They leave a document behind. They lash out and incriminate themselves in ways that a sealed file cannot. Underpinning the pillars were 2 rules I refused to break. No emotional confrontations until the net was set. I would not storm the house or confront Claire alone. She had already shown she would pull a trigger. Any direct explosion of emotion would only hand them the initiative. Protect the boy at all costs. Every move had to be measured against Daniel's safety. If the risk to him ever rose, the plan changed. There was no glory in victory if my son paid for it. The early hours after the shooting were the most delicate. They believed I was gone. That window was my trump card. While they celebrated what they thought was freedom, I tightened the screws. Small, surgical moves. An anonymous transfer trace to one shell company. A discreet tip to an investigator about Ethan's offshore conduit. A recorded call between 2 of Ethan's associates boasting about a clean exit. Each act seemed minor, but together they formed a pattern. They moved Ethan from confidence to paranoia. Proof, not vengeance, was the main currency. I layered documentation, emails, timestamps, GPS pings, into digital and physical copies. I duplicated everything. I built a narrative any prosecutor could follow. I wanted not only to ruin them, but to ensure they were prosecuted in a court of law for the damage they intended and the lives they traded. That moral line mattered to me. I had seen too many systems collapse when vigilantes crossed it. Finally, the psychological edge. I used their own assumptions against them. They expected fear, chaos, or silence from me. Instead, they got steadiness and a slow, inexorable unveiling. Pressure that builds is far crueler than a single blow. It forces mistakes, reveals companions with squealing consciences, and turns allies into accusers. When I look back, the main concept wasn't complex. Survive long enough to gather irrefutable proof, then let the combined weight of law, finance, and reputation crush the people who weaponize betrayal. The vest had given me the first breath. Strategy and patience would give me the sentence. Above all else, I told myself this: I would not become them. I would use the system they had tried to exploit and make sure it finished the work I'd started. The rest, the reckoning, would follow. People think dramatic takedowns are one-off miracles, a lucky raid, a heroic shootout. The truth is messier and quieter. Wins come from patterns, small decisions repeated, and the discipline to follow a plan. To show why the approach worked, here are 3 real examples. Many case studies from my life and work that prove the survive, observe, assemble, expose method is not theory. It's battle-tested. Case study 1. The CEO who trusted the wrong partner. A year before Claire cracked, a tech CEO hired my firm after a near-kidnapping scare. He'd trusted a business partner with overseas contracts. The partner betrayed him, leaking travel schedules and security blind spots to a criminal syndicate. The CEO wanted to retaliate fast. Hire muscle, confront the partner, make an example. I said no. We used layered documentation instead. We installed covert cameras in safe areas, mirrored the partner's financial flows, and fed small, verifiable tips to federal agents. Within 2 weeks, prosecutors had a sealed indictment built on bank transfers, travel logs, and communication records we supplied. The partner was arrested quietly in an airport lounge before he could flee. The syndicate's buyers were traced and stopped. No street fight, no messy headlines, just evidence that closed the case. The CEO kept his company, his family, and his reputation. The lesson: patience and proof far outmatch blind retribution. Case study 2, the night I didn't move. Not every example comes from outside my life. In one operation early in my security career, a contractor I trusted turned on me. He staged a break-in to test the perimeter, but he intended to steal something else. I caught him in the act on a hidden feed. My first instinct was to confront. Instead, I documented, staged, and used leverage. I let him walk away that night with the illusion of success, then alerted his employer and the authorities with irrefutable proof. He was prosecuted for fraud and coercion. The employer paid civil restitution, and the contractor lost every contract he'd built. If I confronted him immediately, he might have threatened my life or destroyed the evidence. The quiet approach preserved safety and produced a clean legal result. Case study 3, the small-town sting that toppled a ring. A friend in another state called about a weekend festival where children were being targeted for illicit adoption schemes. The local PD was outmatched. We organized a discreet net. Anonymous tips to county investigators, covert surveillance of key attendees, and careful financial tracing of the nonprofit shell funding the ring. We worked with single federal liaison, not enough to go public, but enough to secure warrants. When the arrests came, they were surgical. The ringleaders went down, the shell accounts froze, and dozens of children were never trafficked. The public didn't see the months of tedium behind the headlines. Only the result: predators removed and families intact. What these examples share is not glamour, but methodical discipline. They show 3 truths. Proof wins where emotion fails. Prosecutors need paperwork and timelines. They don't convict on righteous anger. Leverage beats force. Expose the money, expose the communications, and the house of cards collapses. Patience protects the vulnerable. Rushed action endangers the innocent. Measured action saves them. When Claire and Ethan thought they'd won by pulling the trigger, they underestimated the value of those truths. They treated the world like a battlefield they controlled. I treated it like a system I could manipulate. Legal channels, financial levers, and social pressure. The results weren't always cinematic in the immediate moment. Often they were text messages sent at 3 a.m., a banker called and frightened into cooperation, or a carefully worded email that froze a transfer. But over time, those small moves turned into large collapses. If you're watching this and wondering whether revenge can be moral, remember this. The goal wasn't to break people for sport. It was to stop harm, protect the innocent, and ensure predators could not simply move on to the next victim. That's what the case studies prove. Measured justice is louder and longer lasting than a single act of violence. A plan only becomes real when you convert strategy into steps someone can follow. After the shooting, I reduced the war into a sequence of concrete actions, a checklist I could run through even when my body wanted to cave. Each step had a purpose, a fail-safe, and a mini-win that kept the momentum moving forward. If you're reading this as a story, know this. The difference between surviving and being consumed is the ability to break chaos into tasks and complete them. Step 1. Stabilize and stage. Hours 0 to 12. Objective. Make them believe I'm gone. Preserve options and evidence. Actions. Treat wounds quietly. Dressings, control breathing, small doses of pain meds I kept for field work. No hospital. No public record of the shooting. Stage the scene so Claire and Ethan have plausible closure. Let them see me fall. Make no noise that would suggest I survived. That buys time. Immediately duplicate all physical evidence to at least 3 secure locations. Encrypted cloud, a safe deposit box, and a dead drop with an old friend. Redundancy matters. Many win. They celebrate. They reveal plans they wouldn't while I was alive. Step 2. Low-profile recon. Hours 12 to 72. Objective. Build an intelligence picture without alerting suspects. Actions. Activate covert surveillance. Inexpensive dash cams, phone GPS pings, and remote camera feeds I'd pre-install for business assessments. Don't be flashy. Use mundane devices. Cross-reference bank timestamps, credit card swipes, and social media check-ins to build a timeline of who met whom, when, and where. Use burner phones and anonymous emails to make discreet inquiries, lawyer, banker, courier firms that confirm financial conduits and shell companies. Mini-win. Confirm date, time/location of the next planned move, e.g., when they meet an offshore attorney or pick up a transfer. Step 3. Secure allies and legal leverage, days 3 to 10. Objective. Bring authorities and trusted partners close enough to act, but not close enough to burn the source. Actions. Feed verified snippets of evidence to a trusted federal contact and a lawyer who understands financial forensics. Provide only the information needed to get a warrant or audit open. Retain the rest as leverage. Engage one reliable former operator, Wallace, for physical overwatch and extraction option for Daniel. Quietly contact intermediaries, a banker, an escrow officer, with proof of funds documents to freeze suspicious transfers temporarily. Mini-win. A sealed subpoena is issued without public exposure. A transfer is halted. Step 4. Protect the child, immediate and ongoing. Objective. Guarantee Daniel's safety above all. Actions. Move him to a discreet, safe location under the cover of a routine errand pretext. Use a familiar caregiver to avoid trauma. Don't kidnap your child in their eyes. Make it normal. Create a parallel life script. A new school route, new daily rhythms, and a cover identity for short windows, so tracking attempts appear to hit dead ends. Vet every helper with a single-question loyalty test. Would you be willing to lose everything for this child? If the answer is anything but yes, they don't get involved. Mini-win. Daniel sleeps through the night in a place they cannot find. Step 5. Financial and digital strangulation, days 7 to 21. Objective. Turn cash flow into exposure. Actions. File civil motions and tip financial crimes units with exact transaction trails I'd extracted. Money funnels are the most revealing DNA of a conspiracy. Use targeted leaks to compel internal audits within the shell companies, an anonymous creditor complaint, a journalist lead to a niche business reporter. Freeze accounts via court orders or bank compliance flags. If direct legal tools lag, create social pressure. A quiet conversation with a major payment processor often does wonders. Mini-win. One shell account frozen. One offshore transfer reversed. Step 6. Controlled exposure and pressure, weeks 3 to 6. Objective. Force suspects to make mistakes under pressure. Actions. Produce a calibrated public pressure campaign. A dossier to a single aggressive journalist, a tip to a regulatory watchdog, and a whistleblower complaint with supporting docs. Coordinate timing so media buzz aligns with court actions and law enforcement raids. Perception amplifies legal leverage. Simultaneously, introduce doubt inside Ethan's network. Anonymous messages implying someone in his circle is cooperating. Fear fractures trust. Mini-win. Partners begin to distance themselves. One associate flips and provides corroborating testimony. Step 7. Execute legal and tactical closure, weeks 6 to 12. Objective. Turn accumulated evidence into arrests and indictments with minimal collateral harm. Actions. Trigger the law enforcement takedown once warrants are sealed and prosecutors are aligned. My job is evidence and timing. Theirs is execution. Keep Daniel's location compartmentalized until the dust settles. No celebratory disclosures on social media or to unnecessary acquaintances. If physical threats persist, use temporary relocation and identity protocols until trials conclude. Mini-win. Key players arrested. Funds seized. Step 8. Rebuild and reconcile months. Objective. Restore life, not only punish. Protect long-term well-being. Actions. Psychological care for myself and Daniel. Trauma doesn't end with an arrest. It lingers and must be treated proactively. Legal follow-through. Civil suits to reclaim misappropriated assets and ensure restitution where possible. Reinforce community ties. Safety is social as well as tactical. Friends, neighbors, and schools become part of the new defensive web. Mini-win. Daniel attends his first school play without fear. Every step had contingencies built in. If a phone was compromised, switch to dead drops. If an ally wavered, have backup. Above all, remain methodical. Chaos is what the betrayer hopes for. Discipline is how you take that chaos and turn it against them. When you strip it down, the plan is less about violence and more about systems, data, timing, and human leverage. That's how you win against people who believe money and cruelty make them invulnerable. When you're furious, wounded, and desperate for justice, the urge to move fast is almost unbearable. That's exactly the state betrayers count on. They rely on your impulsive reaction to hand them back control. Over the years, and through the mess with Claire and Ethan, I watched two kinds of mistakes destroy chances. The mistakes the betrayers made and the mistakes victims almost always make in response. Learn them. Avoid them. They will save lives. Trap 1. Confrontation too early. The instinct. Storm in. Throw evidence on the table. Demand answers. Why it fails. Confrontation alerts the guilty, destroys leverage, and often escalates violence. In my case, had I charged Claire the night I first suspected her, she might have accelerated the plan or covered her tracks. She only exposed herself when she believed I was gone. How to avoid it? Gather proof first. Convert motion into documentation. Receipts, timestamps, recordings. Confront only when you have the power to force a resolution, law enforcement, sealed warrants, or undeniable public exposure. Trap 2. Going public without the paper trail. The instinct. Vent on social media to get support or shame the betrayer. Why it fails. Public posts can be used against you in court, tip off conspirators, and ruin the credibility of your case. A prosecutor won't take a Facebook rant as evidence. How to avoid it? Keep communications private. Build a legal case quietly. Use public pressure only when it's paired with airtight evidence and coordinated with counsel. Trap 3. Trusting the wrong ally. The instinct. Recruit help from anyone who says they'll help. Friends, online vigilantes, ex-colleagues. Why it fails. Desperate people make bad decisions about who they trust. A turncoat can sell your location, leak evidence, or sabotage investigations. In my story, some of Ethan's partners turned on each other because pressure made them desperate. But I never relied on a shaky ally unless they'd already proven loyalty. How to avoid it? Vet helpers ruthlessly. Small loyalty tests work. Ask for a low-risk favor first. Watch who shows up when consequences are real. Prioritize professional partners, lawyers, vetted former operators, trusted federal contacts. Trap 4. Letting emotion drive tactics. The instinct. Escalate to violence or do something dramatic to teach a lesson. Why it fails. Violence multiplies legal risk and can destroy your moral authority. It also endangers innocents, including children. I could have taken a gun and started hunting. Instead, I weaponized evidence and law. That choice saved Daniel and ensured lasting accountability. How to avoid it? Institutionalize discipline. Write step-by-step options and require yourself to wait 24 hours before any major move. Bring in an objective third party, lawyer, problem solver, to review plans. Trap 5. Failing to protect the vulnerable first. The instinct. Chase the guilty immediately. Deal with safety later. Why it fails. Chasing retribution without securing the vulnerable, kids, elderly relatives, witnesses, yields the worst possible cost. Your win becomes meaningless if someone you love pays. How to avoid it? Prioritize relocation, safe houses, and trusted caregivers. Create new daily routines with a protected person that remove predictable patterns. If you have to pick, safety closure. Trap 6. Over-reliance on technology or the opposite. The instinct. Either trust tech blindly or avoid it completely. Why it fails. Tech can betray you. Hacked phones, GPS spoofing, compromised cloud backups. Conversely, rejecting tech leaves you blind to patterns you need. Claire and Ethan believed deleting messages erased guilt. It didn't. I leveraged both analog and digital redundancy. How to avoid it? Diversify evidence storage. Keep encrypted cloud copies, physical safe deposit duplicates, and an offline dead drop. Use burner devices for risky communications, and assume every device can be compromised. Trap 7. Thinking justice is instant. The instinct. Expect quick closure after exposing someone. Why it fails. Legal processes are slow and messy. Expect obstruction, appeals, and people who slip through cracks. Patience, boring, tedious patience, is the real tool. I saw cases that stalled for months. The ones that ultimately held up were the ones that had documentation and stayed the course. How to avoid it? Mentally prepare for marathon work. Keep records organized. Follow up with law enforcement and plan for long-term safety and finances. If there's one through line here, it's this: clarity, discipline, and protection beat drama every time. The worst thing you can do after betrayal is let it make you reckless. Protect the people who matter. Build your case quietly. Use systems, legal, financial, social, to collapse the network that hurt you. When you avoid these traps, you not only achieve justice, you survive to see it mean something. Close your eyes and picture it. The courtroom buzzing, cameras flashing, prosecutors laying out every receipt, every transfer, every whisper message between Claire and Ethan. Then picture their faces, the shift from smug confidence to raw panic as they realize the walls are closing in. That's not just justice. That's the future they wrote for themselves the moment they chose betrayal. But the long-term impact isn't only about their downfall. It's about what comes after, the rebuilding, the healing, and the life you reclaim when you refuse to be defined by what they try to take. For me, the most powerful moment wasn't when Claire was led away in handcuffs or when Ethan's assets were seized by federal agents. It was when I stood at the back of Daniel's school auditorium, watching him walk across the stage for his end-of-year performance. He spotted me in the crowd, his eyes lit up, and in that instant I knew he was safe. He was free from their grasp. And so was I. That's the future vision I hold on to. A life not haunted by betrayal, but strengthened by survival. Betrayal strips you raw, but it also teaches clarity. It forces you to learn who deserves to stand beside you and who never will again. Imagine waking up without the weight of paranoia pressing on your chest. Imagine knowing the people at your table are truly there for you, not plotting in the dark. Imagine your children laughing freely, never knowing how close danger once came. That's the long-term payoff of doing things right, of avoiding the traps, gathering proof, and letting patience be your weapon. But the vision isn't just personal. When predators like Ethan are exposed, networks collapse. Families who would have been targets remain untouched. Business deals that would have funded corruption never happen. Every betrayal stopped echoes outward. Every act of clarity denies darkness another foothold. I think about the legacy of choices. Claire and Ethan thought they were building theirs on luxury trips, secret accounts, and whispered promises. In reality, they built it on sand. When the tide of truth came in, everything they constructed washed away. Their legacy became a cautionary tale. Mine and Daniel's became one of survival and resilience. And here's the truth no betrayer understands until it's too late. Survival isn't neutral. It transforms you. When you live through a bullet, a plan, and a betrayal that should have buried you, the future becomes sharper. Every relationship is measured with precision. Every decision carries weight. You stop wasting time on people who don't matter. You invest only in the ones who've proven themselves. For me, that meant reconnecting with old brothers in arms, the kind who would never sell me out. It meant building Sentinel Risk Solutions into something bigger, not just a company, but a shield for others walking through storms like mine. And it meant teaching Daniel, carefully and age-appropriately, that trust is precious, but awareness is necessary, that he could still believe in people, but never at the cost of his safety. The long-term impact of betrayal is what you choose to do with it. You can drown in anger and let it poison every future moment. Or you can treat it as fire, painful, searing, but also purifying. Fire destroys, but it also forges. I chose forging. So picture this with me. Years down the line, a quiet house where laughter replaces arguments, where scars remain but no longer ache. Picture the knowledge that the worst was survived, and that survival became strength. That's the vision. That's the payoff. And that's why I say betrayal didn't end me. It defined me, and then it freed me. Betrayal tried to end me with a single pull of a trigger. My wife thought a bullet would erase me. Ethan thought greed would buy him power. They were both wrong. The vest saved my body. Patience saved my mind. And truth, cold, undeniable truth, sealed their fate. When the judge read their sentences, There was no victory dance, no triumphant speech, just silence. Because justice isn't about noise, it's about finality. Claire and Ethan had gambled everything on deceit, and they lost it all. Their freedom, their reputation, their wealth, gone. But for me, survival became something more than revenge. It became clarity. It became proof that no matter how carefully betrayal is planned, it only takes one survivor to bring the whole house down. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this. Trust is fragile, betrayal is deadly, but survival is the sharpest weapon of all. Don't let betrayal make you reckless. Let it make you stronger, because in the end, they didn't bury me. They built me, and that is the justice they never saw coming.